I made my stepdaughter a lunch every day because she was coming home starving from school. Then her mother called and told me to stop playing mom and mind my own business. My stepdaughter's mother called me on a Thursday afternoon and told me to stop feeding her child, and I said something back that ended every civil arrangement we had built over 2 years in under 60 seconds. Not a slow deterioration. Not a conflict that had been building across months of small tensions. One phone call. 2 minutes. One sentence from her and one sentence from me, and then the specific silence of a line that has been disconnected by someone who has heard something they did not expect and is not yet ready to respond to it. I need to tell you about Lily before I tell you anything else. Because this story is about Lily first and about her mother and me second, and I want that order to be clear from the beginning. Lily is 9 years old. She has her father's eyes and her own specific way of entering a room, quietly, with the particular careful quality of a child who has learned to assess the atmosphere of a space before committing to being fully present in it. She has been doing this since I met her 2 years ago, and I recognized it immediately because I had done the same thing at her age and I understood what it meant about the home she was learning to navigate. She comes to us every other week. Wednesday pickup, the following Tuesday drop-off. 10 days with her father and me, 4 days with her mother, the specific calendar of a child whose life has been divided by a legal arrangement into segments that at LTS have determined, and that she moves between with the adaptive competence of a child who has not been given the option of not adapting. The lunches started in month 3 of the new school year. Not because I had planned a campaign to establish myself in her daily routine. Because she came home on a Monday afternoon and went directly to the kitchen and ate an entire sleeve of crackers standing at the counter before she had taken off her backpack. I watched her do this. Then I said, "When did you last eat?" She said, "Breakfast." I said, "Did you not have lunch at school?" She said, "My lunch was a granola bar and some grapes." I said, "That was your whole lunch?" She looked at me with the expression of a child who has not been asked this question before and is not certain whether the asking of it is going to produce something good or something complicated. Then she said, "Sometimes it is more. Depends on the week." I said, "Are you still hungry?" She said, "Yes." I made her a sandwich. A real one, with a specific construction of something that required more than assembly, toasted bread and the turkey she liked, and the specific combination of things that I had paid attention to across 3 months of shared meals and had filed in the way that you file information about people you are paying attention to. I put it in front of her with an apple and a glass of milk, and I sat across from her while she ate it with the specific focused attention of a genuinely hungry child. When she finished, she looked at me and said, "Thank you. That was really good." I said, "You are welcome. You should not be coming home that hungry." She said, "Mom is really busy." She said it matter-of-factly. Not as a complaint. As a piece of information she had organized her understanding of her situation around. Mom is really busy. The specific sentence of a child who has found an explanation for a gap and is using it to avoid naming the gap as a gap. I said, "Being busy is hard. I'm going to make sure you have a better lunch when you are here." She looked at me with something that was not quite surprise and not quite gratitude. Something between them. The expression of a child who has been told something specific is going to happen and is waiting to find out if the specific thing actually happens or if it joins the category of things that were said and did not happen. It happened. Every day she was with us, I made her lunch. Not elaborate. Real. The specific construction of something made by someone who has paid attention to what a particular child actually eats rather than what a generic child is supposed to eat. The turkey sandwich on toasted bread. The apple. Sometimes a small container of the pasta salad I knew she liked. Sometimes the specific cookies I baked on Sunday evenings that she had once said were the best cookies she had ever eaten and that I had been making every Sunday since, because the expression on her face when she said it was the kind of expression that makes you want to keep producing the thing that caused it. She started coming to the kitchen when she got home with the easy anticipation of a child who knows what to expect and has stopped needing to assess the atmosphere before committing to being present. She dropped her backpack at the door. She came to the kitchen. She ate the lunch I had made. She talked to me about her day with the specific gradual opening of a child who is learning that talking about her day produces interested listening rather than distracted responses. I learned things in those kitchen conversations that I had not known about her. That she had a best friend named Sophia who she had known since kindergarten and who she was worried about because Sophia's family was moving to another district. That she had a teacher she liked enormously who asked questions nobody expected and waited for real answers. That she was afraid of the dark but only in specific places, certain stairwells and the stretch of hallway outside the bathroom, and that she had a specific strategy for moving through those places quickly that she described in the specific practical detail of someone who has solved a problem and is proud of the solution. I learned these things over lunches. Over the specific ordinary daily minutes of a child eating something made for her by someone who had paid attention to what she liked. Her father noticed. He told me once, about 6 weeks into the lunches, that Lily seemed different when she was with us. more settled. He said she had started asking, on the Tuesdays before the handoff, what we were having for dinner that week as though she was already planning her return. He said it in the specific tone of a man who is watching something good happen and is moved by it in a way he does not have a full language for yet. I said, she comes home hungry. I make her lunch. He said, it is more than lunch. I said, I know. But it starts with lunch. The call from her mother came on a Thursday in November. I was in the kitchen when my phone rang. Her name on the screen. We had spoken twice before, both times about logistics, pickup times and a medication Lily needed and the specific practical information that two households managing one child's schedule require. Both calls had been civil in the specifically managed way of people who are performing cooperation because cooperation is required and who have not yet had reason to test whether the performance has anything underneath it. I answered. I said hello. She said my name with the specific tone of someone who has been working up to a conversation and has arrived at it with the energy of that preparation. She said, I need to ask you to stop making Lily's lunch. I said, I'm sorry? She said, the lunch thing. Every day. I need you to stop. You are not her mother and I need you to stop playing that role and mind your own business. I sat with those words for 2 seconds. Playing that role. Mind your own business. I said, your daughter comes home from school having eaten a granola bar and some grapes. She eats an entire sleeve of crackers at the counter before she takes her backpack off. I make her a real lunch because she is hungry and she is 9 years old and a hungry 9-year-old in my kitchen is my business. She said, she is not your child. I said, no. She is not. She is a hungry child and I am feeding her. She said, you are overstepping. I said, I am making turkey sandwiches. If that is overstepping then I do not know what the correct step is. She said, the correct step is to stay in your lane. I said, my lane is the kitchen where your daughter eats lunch every day because she comes home hungry. I'm going to stay in that lane. She hung up. I put the phone down. I stood in the kitchen for a moment. Then I called my husband. He answered on the second ring. I told him about the call. The specific words. Playing that role. Mind your own business. The hungry child and the granola bar and the crackers at the counter. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, what did you say to her? I told him. He said, good. He said, I'm calling my lawyer tomorrow. I said, why your lawyer? He said, because this conversation is the first one in a series that has a direction and I want to know where we stand before the series develops. I said, do you know what she meant by playing that role? He said, I know what she is afraid of. I said, what is she afraid of? He said, she is afraid that Lily prefers being here. She has been afraid of that since month 1. The lunch is just the thing that made the fear specific enough to produce a phone call. I sat with that. The fear that Lily prefers being here. The specific anxiety of a mother who is busy and whose daughter comes home hungry and who is receiving reports, presumably from Lily, of turkey sandwiches and Sunday cookies and kitchen conversations and a child who plans her return menus in advance. I understood the fear. I want to say that clearly because understanding it matters to the accurate account. A mother hearing that her daughter is being fed and cared for in specific daily ways by another woman is receiving information that would produce fear in most mothers regardless of whether the care was welcomed or not. The fear was real. It was also not my problem to solve at the expense of a hungry 9-year-old. The call was on Thursday. On Friday, Lily arrived from school with the specific look of a child who has been told something and is carrying the weight of it. She dropped her backpack at the door. She stood in the hallway instead of coming to the kitchen. I waited. She said, Mom said you are not supposed to make my lunch anymore. I said, I know. She called me. She said, are you going to stop? I looked at my stepdaughter in the hallway of our home. 9 years old. Carrying a message from one at LT to another that she should not have been asked to carry. Waiting to find out if the specific thing that had been happening, the thing she had stopped assessing the atmosphere before committing to, was going to continue or join the category of things that were said and did not happen. I said, come to the kitchen. She came to the kitchen. I made the turkey sandwich on toasted bread. I put it in front of her with the apple and the glass of milk. I sat across from her while she ate. When she finished, she said, thank you. I said, you are welcome. You should not come home hungry. She said, Mom is really busy. I said, I know. And when you are here and you are hungry, I am going to make sure you have something real to eat. That is not going to change. She looked at me with the expression she had used in the first weeks, the one between surprise and gratitude, and then it moved into something else. Something more settled. The expression of a child who has just had the specific thing confirmed and who has filed it in the category of things that are real and not in the category of things that were said. She said, okay. Then she told me about Sophia and the new district and the teacher who asked questions nobody expected, and I listened with the specific quality of someone who is paying attention, and she knew I was paying attention, and the kitchen was warm and the sandwich was gone, and it was an ordinary Thursday afternoon in the life of a child who was fed and heard and present. The phone rang again at 7 that evening. Not her mother. The lawyer her mother had apparently also called that same Thursday. And what he said changed the shape of everything that came next. The lawyer's call was not from her mother's lawyer. It was from my husband's lawyer, the one he had called that afternoon, who had received a call from her mother's lawyer and was calling to relay the content. Her mother was filing a motion. The specific legal motion of a parent who has decided that the current custody arrangement requires formal revision and who has engaged representation to pursue that revision. The grounds cited in the initial communication included, among other things, a pattern of behavior by the step-parent that was described as overstepping appropriate boundaries and attempting to replace the maternal role. The turkey sandwich was in a legal document. I want to pause on that for a moment. Not dramatically. Just to be precise about what had happened. A child had come home hungry. I had made her lunch. I had done this every day for 3 months because she came home hungry every day. And the making of lunch had been cited in a legal document as evidence of inappropriate boundary VOION. My husband sat across from me at the kitchen table that had produced 3 months of turkey sandwiches, and he looked at the notes he had taken during the lawyer's call and he said, "She is not going to get what she is asking for." I said, "How do you know?" He said, "Because what she is describing is not what the court is going to see when it looks at this. She is describing a step-parent feeding a hungry child. The court is going to see a child who is coming home hungry in a household that addressed it." I said, "Are you sure?" He said, "I am not sure of anything in a legal process. But I am sure that our position is that our daughter came home hungry and we fed her, and if that is the conversation we are having in front of a judge, then I am comfortable having it." Our daughter. He said it the way he had been saying it for months, without the qualifier, not my stepdaughter or Lily or her, just our daughter, and I received it the way I always received it, as the specific thing it was, which was a man saying the accurate word for a relationship that had been building in a kitchen over turkey sandwiches and Sunday cookies and conversations about Sophia and dark stairwells. The legal process moved through its stages. I was not at the center of it. My husband and his lawyer were the center of it, and I provided what was asked of me, which was an account of the lunches and a timeline and the specific details of the Thursday conversation and the crackers at the counter that had started all of it. The guardian ad litem was assigned to speak with Lily, a professional whose role is to assess the situation from the perspective of the child's best interests and to report to the court what those interests appear to require. I do not know what Lily told her. I know what I had done and what it had produced, and I trusted that a professional trained to assess these situations would be able to see it accurately. The guardian's report took 3 weeks. I did not see it. My husband saw the relevant portions and he told me, without detailing the specific language, that the report was not going in the direction her mother's filing had hoped. The motion was withdrawn 6 weeks after it was filed. Not because her mother had been defeated in a dramatic sense. Because her mother's lawyer had seen the guardian's report and had advised her that proceeding was not going to produce the outcome she was seeking, and that the most practical path forward was to withdraw and return to the existing arrangement. The existing arrangement continued. Wednesday pickup. Tuesday drop-off. Turkey sandwiches on toasted bread every day. Lily was with us. Her mother and I did not speak again for 11 weeks. When we spoke, it was because Lily's school had a parent event and we were both present, and the specific proximity of two LTS who share responsibility for a child's life in a room full of other parents produced a moment that required navigation. She came to where I was standing. She looked at me with the expression of someone who has made a decision about how to handle a situation and is implementing it. She said, "I want to say something." I said, "Okay." She said, "I know Lily likes being at your house. I know she talks about you. I know she comes home with cookies in her bag and tells me about conversations she had with you in the kitchen, and I understand what that means about the relationship you have built with her, and I want you to know that I am aware of it." I said, "Okay." She said, "I'm not going to pretend the phone call in November was my best moment. I was operating from a place of fear and it came out as a phone call that I should not have made in the form I made it." I said, "She was hungry." She said, "I know. I have not been managing things well. I am working on it." I said, "She talks about you all the time. The things you do together. The specific ways you know her. She loves you." She looked at me for a moment. Then she said, "Thank you for saying that." I said, "It is true. We did not become friends. I want to be honest about that because the honest version of this story does not end with two women becoming allies over a school event. We became something more functional than we had been. The specific functional quality of two at LTS who both love the same child and have decided that what the child needs is more important than the discomfort of their own relationship. Lily knows something changed. Not the specifics of the legal motion or the guardian or the withdrawn filing. Children understand the atmosphere of situations even when they have not been given the specific details. She had been present for the month when things were tense, and she was present for the month when things became less tense, and she navigated both with the same adaptive competence she brought to everything. She still comes home on Wednesdays and drops her backpack at the door and comes to the kitchen. She still eats the turkey sandwich on toasted bread. She still tells me about Sophia, who did not move to the other district after all because Sophia's family situation changed, and about the teacher who asks questions nobody expects, and about the dark stairwells and her strategy for moving through them. She told me something once that I have thought about many times since. We were in the kitchen on a Wednesday in February. She was eating the sandwich and I was making the Sunday cookies a few days early because she had mentioned she had a test the following week and I had decided cookies were appropriate test preparation support. She said without looking up from her plate. I told my mom, "You make me feel like someone is paying attention." I stopped what I was doing. I looked at her. She was still looking at her plate with the specific concentration of a child who has said something significant and is giving you the space to receive it without having to manage the receiving. I said, "I am paying attention." She said, "I know." She kept eating. I kept making the cookies. The kitchen was warm and ordinary and full of the specific quiet of two people who are comfortable enough together that the quiet does not require filling. I am not her mother. I want to say that clearly and without the specific performance of someone trying to avoid a complicated word. I am not her mother. I am the woman who married her father and who pays attention to what she likes and who makes her turkey sandwiches because she comes home hungry and who has Sunday cookie making on the calendar every week because a 9-year-old once said they were the best cookies she had ever eaten. That is what I am. It does not have a clean word and it does not need one. It is the thing that built itself in a kitchen over 3 months of ordinary afternoons and that has continued building across every Wednesday since. Her mother called me playing that role. Mind your own business. I have thought about those words many times and what they were intended to communicate and what they actually communicated. What they communicated was fear. The specific fear of a mother who is busy and who is hearing from her daughter about a place where things are specific and attentive and real. I understand that fear now in a way I did not on the Thursday it arrived as a phone call. I understand it and I do not hold it against the woman who felt it. But I also understand something that the fear was covering. Which is that a hungry child in your kitchen is your business. Full stop. Not as a performance of parenthood or a violation of boundaries or a playing of rules. As the basic and irreducible fact of a hungry child who is present and a person who is capable of feeding her. I fed her. I will keep feeding her. Every Wednesday and every day after Wednesday that she drops her backpack at my door and comes to the kitchen with the specific easy anticipation of a child who knows what to expect. That is not playing a role. That is just paying attention. And some children have been waiting a very long time for someone to do exactly that. See the hunger. Feed the child. Everything else will find its shape around that. It always does.